your need to play by the rules is completely dependent on whether or not you can leave with your money. And if you've got all your money wrapped up in real estate, if you've got all your money wrapped up in some kind of like 401k or some kind of retirement account or some education account or even some bank account, some stock account, some Robinhood account, if all your money's there, you're hooked. You cannot leave. All of your value, everything you've ever worked for is locked to the border, to the jurisdiction, to the four walls of that border. But if you've got 12 words in your head, you can go anywhere in the world and access your generational wealth. All of a sudden, the world's a little bit bigger. The world gets a little bit more free. You get a little bit more, like less anxiety thinking about, watching the stage. Do I need to take 100 vaccines this year to go watch my kid play hockey? Do I have to wear, 9 masks and eyeglasses so I don't infect someone's like aunt sitting 9 million miles away? Like a bunch of these mental gymnastics games just don't work when you can kind of zoom out and you're not working from a place of fear.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Sports Network podcast, where we blend excitement with competition to create unforgettable experiences. Our mission is to empower Bitcoin one competition at a time and help orange pill the world.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Sports Network. We're honored to have a very special guest with us today, Adam O'Brien. He's the CEO of Bitcoin Well, one of the premier Bitcoin-only exchanges available here on the North American continent in Canada and the United States. They practice self-sovereignty, self-custody, and self-custodial wallets when we're talking about buying our Bitcoin. So you never have to worry about some other company holding on to your Bitcoin and wondering if it's going to get taken away or not. Adam is here to tell us all about that. Adam, great to meet you, man. How you doing?
Hey, it's great to be here. I'm doing great. I'm pumped for a big golf event and looking forward to, chatting. I mean, Bitcoin and sports, what could be better?
Yeah. Bitcoin Well is the sponsor of the 6th hole at the Samara Bitcoin Golf Championship we have going on in Las Vegas in just around 10 days. The excitement is starting to get really crazy. The FOMO is starting to kick in. We've really started to notice ticket sales starting to pick up, and everybody's really excited about the event. So we wanted to have Adam on the call here and just give everybody a little bit more information about who Adam is and what Bitcoin Well is and how you can use it to help stack more sats.
Wicked. Yeah, man. No, hey, it's great to be here. Obviously, you kind of, I noticed in lots of selves when you're describing Bitcoin Well, and that's our mission, is to enable independence. I believe wholeheartedly that people were put on this earth to be independent, to be free. We work so hard for the money that we have. And I think it's really, really important that we understand how to not only protect it, but also launch it into the future so that our kids, our bloodlines, if anyone's heard me on a podcast before, they've heard me talk about my great-great-granddaughter. And I love this mindset of my great-great-granddaughter, because I'm probably not going to meet my great-great-granddaughter. Modern medicine and a bit of Bitcoin, I think there's a chance. I have myself clocked at 120. That's kind of my target. So, in 100, I'm 32 now. So maybe in 90 years, I'll have a great-great-granddaughter, but I won't be playing golf or playing soccer with her, right? I'm going to be probably just in some chair talking about the good old days. And thinking about her and working so hard for her is, I think, what makes Bitcoin so special. Is it's a cheat code to be able to give your great-great-granddaughter a fighting shot in the future when, you think the last 90 years has been crazy. The next 90 years are going to be insane. And I think one of the only protections we can possibly guarantee is the value you store in Bitcoin will be yours and has probably the best shot in human history at maintaining the value that it is. And I think that's pretty special.
I have to ask you, how did you find Bitcoin first? What was your first point of contact with it, and what then, inspired to create a company around it?
Yeah, finding Bitcoin was early for me. I was 20. It was in 2013. I stumbled across it on some blog. It had just hit $100, and I was like, "Haha, fake internet money worth $100. What a scam!" And then started, trying, being the arrogant 20-year-old that I was. I was like, "I'm gonna prove everyone on this, talk forum wrong," and so do a little bit of research. And it's like, oh, hey, the history of money is actually pretty messed up, and this thing does solve that pretty good. But there's no way internet money is safe. So then let's read about cryptography. Let's read about proof of work. Let's read about the mining algorithm and open source. And I wasn't exposed to this stuff growing up. I was kind of always tinkering with hardware and business, but never really technology in that way. And so really opened my eyes to what that was, and I was like, oh wow, this actually makes a ton of sense. This is amazing. And so I was like, well, nothing is really worth anything if you can't buy it and you can't then sell it. And I love to sell things. Growing up, my dad was a traveling salesman, and he would tell me not that I couldn't sell stuff because he knew that would never work, just what I could sell. He would kind of try to box me in. He'd come home sometimes. I sold his couches, his TV, like game consoles, golf clubs. I was a savage. I just loved flipping stuff. I loved buying and selling things. Before I was 21 years old, I'd owned 30 cars, just buying and selling. I just loved to sell things. And so I ended up buying a Bitcoin, took my, crisp $100 bill and bought a Bitcoin. Had a terrible experience. Back in 2013, there was no, forget self-custody exchanges. There was no exchanges. There was like Mt. Gox, and that was it. And at the time, the way that we could fund Mt. Gox from Canada was wiring money to some Russian account. It was super sketchy. Or you could opt for this back alley peer-to-peer experience. And so I opted for the back alley experience. This guy jumped in my car, took my $100, scanned my sketchy early blockchain.info wallet, and he was like, hey, see ya, and then left. And I was like, yeah, it's a scam, guaranteed. This is not the future of money whatsoever. Everyone is wrong. But then, calmed down, got home, read about confirmations and kind of all this all the stuff that you read about. And I was like, okay, well, I've got this, Bitcoin wallet. It says 1 Bitcoin. It says, 8 confirmations. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now can I sell it? And so over the next week, I kind of sold fractions of that Bitcoin. I got my $100 back and still had 0.1 Bitcoin. And I was like, 10% in a week. I'm a genius. This is better than TradFi. All you Wall Street guys got nothing on me. 1,500%, year over year returns. I made it. This is it. I'm good. And so put in a standing ad on what at that time was Kijiji, Craigslist, and Facebook. Not Marketplace, just was posting a ton on my Facebook profile. And I was like, okay, I'm buying and selling Bitcoin. If you guys want some, just call me and let's go meet and we'll talk about Bitcoin. And so over the next couple of weeks, I was getting phone calls and people wanted to meet. I was meeting people in McDonald's and Starbucks and eating ice cream and coffee, talking about Bitcoin, selling Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin. Lots of people that had leftover Bitcoin from buying on the Silk Road. They had this Bitcoin. They're like, I don't know what to do with it. So then they just sold it to me and I would give them cash and I would sell it to other people. And it was just kind of created this peer-to-peer network. Still today, Bitcoin Well has customers, and our team talks to them and they're like, I remember, meeting Adam, he was driving around this little Volkswagen Golf with just mountains of cash in his trunk, buying and selling Bitcoin.
Oh my God.
And then found Bitcoin ATMs and launched some Bitcoin ATMs, and kind of just from there, the story really snowballs. But it started just because I was a curious kid wanting to disprove the world. Anyone who tries to disprove Bitcoin, you can't with logic. And so now we're Team Bitcoin, and then, turning now into, I think, more than Team Bitcoin now, I would say I am Team Freedom, Team Independence. I think it's absolutely insane where the world is going. And I think, like I said earlier, we absolutely need to be teaching and fighting for our individual rights and freedoms in this country, in this continent, and in this world. And I think Bitcoin is one of the greatest tools to do that.
Awesome. I want to take it back to something that you had talked about when you're visiting all of these strangers and all these weird locations. Can you talk to what if you can even remember, what your mindset was while you, at the time, 2013 was so early, there weren't a lot of Bitcoiners out there, yet you happened to find them. Was there some community that you tapped into that you didn't know existed, or were you surprised about how many people wanted to buy Bitcoin or knew something about it, or what was that experience like for you?
Um, I don't know that there was. So there was certainly some Bitcoiners that I met and I'm still great friends with today, business partners with a few of them today. And so absolutely that existed at the time. And I was like, we were all kind of figuring it out together. Um, but I would say most of the business, the transactions that we were doing at the time was transactional, meaning now we've got lots of emphasis around self custody and DCA and strategy and all this stuff. Back in the day, it was just like, hey, I need to buy something with Bitcoin, or I need Bitcoin for money remittance, or I need Bitcoin for XYZ. That's why I'm buying it. I think very few people that I dealt with anyways, were buying Bitcoin because they believed that it was going to be 150,000 Canadian dollars, 12 years later. I think it was mostly transactional based at the time. And so I would say my mindset at that time was more about like Forex related. It was a little bit more like how you'd like, it was the kind of experience you'd experience at trading like for gold. Like it was more of a gold shop experience or a pawn shop experience, less of kind of what we have now, which is more of a freedom experience. And that transition, like in the early days, our mission was to make Bitcoin accessible. And that was me driving around in the car and then a bunch of Bitcoin ATMs around Canada. But we've in 2020, we put a lot of work into our brand. We changed our name to Bitcoin Well from what was Bitcoin Solutions. And our mission became to enable independence. And that's kind of when the product started really turning into what we have today.
Very cool. On that subject too, so you started basically going out, meeting with individuals and doing a peer-to-peer transaction with Bitcoin, cash for Bitcoin, and then you parlayed that into a ATM business, keeping the brand of Bitcoin out and available for other people to be able to buy Bitcoin. And then you moved over to an exchange type of business that really has a platform on peer-to-peer exchange transaction versus custodial, third-party custodial transactions like a Coinbase or a Kraken or even a Strike or a River. What about your experience led you to believe that the right way to go with Bitcoin is more peer-to-peer, hands-off versus what we've seen some of the other major players in the space kind of take their direction with offering up Bitcoin?
Yeah, just for some like kind of nuance there, I wouldn't say that Bitcoin Well is necessarily peer to peer, but we are non-custodial, and the difference there being is that like when you buy Bitcoin at Bitcoin Well, you are interacting with Bitcoin Well. The difference is that we deliver your Bitcoin to you immediately, which is exactly like how a peer to peer transaction would work. So in this case, we are always one of the peers, but we are always delivering the coins like to the customer, to the individual, as soon as their transaction is complete. And I have watched more exchanges melt down than literally anyone else in this space because I've just been around to watch them all melt down. My first bear market, so I got in March 2013. December 2013, Mt. Gox crashed, and the price of Bitcoin went from $1,200 to $600 in like 3 hours, and that was petrified. And then it fell from $600 to $200 over the course of the next 3 months. And I thought that was it. I thought it was a bubble. I thought it was done. I remember one of my like dear friends in the space, who I'm still like dear friends with today, business partners with today. We were sitting at a coffee shop in Edmonton. It was $243 exactly, and we were both just like, maybe this is just the price of Bitcoin. Maybe this is what it is. Maybe those coins we bought at $1,200 were not worth $1,200. And I'll never forget that conversation. And again, what was the catalyst for that? It was Mt. Gox falling and failing. And then we had CA Vertex in Canada also fall and fail. We had Quadriga in Canada also fall and fail. We had Vault of Satoshi, do a very quick exit. They did it properly, but there were still coins that were lost in that transaction. Like literally for a period of time, every exchange in Canada that was launched failed and stole customer money. And our Bitcoin ATMs, of course, were non-custodial. And I wanted to bring that kind of Bitcoin ATM experience online, make it more scalable. At the time, I couldn't figure out how to get funding for this Bitcoin ATM business. We were like cash flowing like crazy, but everyone was scared of Bitcoin. I wasn't well tapped into a VC scene or a business scene. No one really was lending or giving money to Bitcoin ATMs. And so I couldn't scale very well. It was really, really difficult. Like it's expensive to buy and deploy Bitcoin ATMs at scale. And with no debt, no capital, I was like, know, 21 years old at this time, 22. I didn't have any money. My I tapped all my resources to get the first ATM. That was it. I was done. And so had to grow from profits, and building software seemed like the more scalable thing to do. And this was all in conjunction with us going public and getting access to capital, and people were excited about this software and how scalable it was. And I think that we were correct in that, like today, we've got over 40,000 users in a couple of years. And we built a platform where like literally 100% of transactions that have gone through bitcoinwell.com have been delivered to the end user. That is something that no other platform in the USA can say. Zero. Not Strike, not Swan, not River, not Coinbase. Like nobody can say that 100% of their Bitcoin transactions are now on the blockchain in the end user's wallet. And that's something that I hold very dearly and that we're going to continue pushing. And I think it's a duty that people that know better, like us, talk about this and make sure that people understand the dangers of custodians. Not just because custodians can rug, but they can. But I like, frankly, I think the days of custodians rugging are probably towards the end. Like there's regulation and like, you know, red tape, and the opportunity cost is just too high now. But I would say that we are not past government's rugging. We will never be past 66102 risk, which of course custodians are hyper exposed to. And then bigger than that is the honeypot risk. I mean, 2 days ago, we watched Coinbase, like, you know, melt all their user data. What if it was their Bitcoin data? What if it was, you know, the million plus Bitcoin that Coinbase holds? The honeypots in custodians are so extreme and so real. Bitcoin allows us to have institutional grade security in the fingertips of the individuals. I don't know why we would pass that up and give it to, you know, Brian Armstrong. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I know more people that have gotten their coins stolen from them from Coinbase in their lackadaisical security structure than any other exchange out there. Now, this was a couple years ago, so I don't know. They probably made some improvements.
Well, but here's here's the thing about you know, Coinbase and on all platforms is you have to trust a security practice that you can't audit. And so if we like took this into a different industry, SIM swapping, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with SIM swapping, but it's like this concept of somebody stealing a cell phone number. And they do this because they being the evil ones, like you know, the groups that are wanting to steal these like massive factories. It's a massive business. Scamming is a huge business, a huge industry. And the scammers install these like people, pay them incredibly well to just infiltrate in the customer support, infiltrate in, you know, this massive network of people. And then when it's time, they say, hey, here's the phone numbers that we want you to steal, go. And they've been working there for years. They've been, you know, making their minimum wage at the cell phone company, and then the scammers are paying them $100,000 a year. Just bide your time, get in there, you know, do your job and get the access. Why couldn't that be happening at these massive Bitcoin exchanges? Are you trusting the hiring practice? Like, so now instead of learning how to self-custody Bitcoin, you have to learn how to like audit Coinbase's security practice, audit the way that they store their coins, audit the employee practices that they have, audit their hiring practices. It's like, guys, just write a couple words on a piece of paper and keep it safe, please. Like, it's not that hard.
You'd be surprised. So, you know, a lot of the feedback that I get about Bitcoin and actually people holding it, you know, when I explained the concept of, you know, you could actually hold Bitcoin like, you know, $1 under your mattress. People get very scared of the self-custody when it comes to a certain amount. I feel like people are very trained from the fiat world to want to give up their rights and want to give up that. You know, what do you find? So I know like Chris kind of hinted on it already, but you know, what was like a key moment? You know, a lot of people I think woke up to Bitcoin during COVID, and then you had like the trucker strikes up in Canada and all these things. You have like a key moment where you were like, man, it's on, like the freedom mission is on. Like, and what was that for you?
Probably not there was probably I'm too dense. I probably needed a few wake up calls to actually have it happen. But the first one for me was related to banking. It was in 2015, and I was sitting. It was the Friday before August long weekend, which is like a beautiful weekend in Edmonton in Canada. And my wife and I are walking the dog. We're going to get the mail, and I get this letter from our bank basically saying like, hey, well, we're canceling all your accounts, we're freezing all your money, and we are closing your mortgage. and you can't use the money in your bank to pay the mortgage off. And if you don't pay it by next week, we're going to be charging you 6.5% interest. And at the time, it was a 1% interest loan. So it was like, and this is, and so I've like freaked, like Friday before the long weekend, like, who am I going to call? No one's picking up their phone. I can't go to the bank. They're closed. And so, that was kind of the first moment where I was like, oh man, this sucks. And then for the next kind of 4 or 5 years, every single bank in the country proceeded to debank me. Not for any reason in particular that they told me anyways. And when I asked them, they just said like, oh, it's compliance, like, nothing we can do. And it became very clear that my actions are always going to be subject to my behavior and my ability or my desire to play by the regime. And I don't play by the rules always too well, and so that kind of freaked me out. Always their counsel was stop doing Bitcoin stuff, and I was like, screw you, I'm not going to stop doing Bitcoin stuff. This is my livelihood. This is how I feed my family, and my, we had a little son at the time. This is how I feed my kid. Like, what do you mean stop doing this? What should I do? And
is it illegal? No. Then why
exactly.
should I stop?
Right.
Yes, exactly. And moreover, like where it got weird is, and some people say like, oh, well, that's just, they have policies and they have stuff. And I asked them, I said, well, okay, what's the policy? Like, please show me the policy where I'm not doing things properly. Because I have an ex-banker who wrote me a compliance policy. Here it is. And they were like, oh, we don't want to see your compliance policy. And I was like, well, hang on a second. You're shutting me down for compliance. I'm going to show you, no, my compliance is good. You're like, nah. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. It's obviously not about the compliance. It's about, the underlying industry that I'm in. Oh, it's too high risk. Okay, well, how do I make it less risky? Just don't do it. Come on, guys. Like, this is not how the world works in this free country. And so that was certainly kind of the early days of me realizing like, okay, I got to protect myself. And then the truckers was, I think, the final, like, the truckers, I would say, is it was less about realizing for me and more about the vindication. Like, I'm edge case, right? Like, not everyone's going to be a psychotic Bitcoin entrepreneur, like, getting debanked across the country. I recognize that I'm an edge case there. But I tell you what, there's a lot of my friends and family that felt very passionate about the truckers that lost, their bank accounts. And there's a lot of, thumbs up. There's a lot of the of the people that, thought they were doing a good thing, thought they were, participating in a peaceful protest, only to have the narrative completely falsely changed and to have their banks, inaccessible. You heard about single mothers not able to pay rent because their banks were closed. And banks were closed, by the way, before the law was passed that they could freeze the banks. Like, they froze banks on Sunday, and then it came back on Tuesday that he actually wasn't allowed to freeze the banks. Like, this all happened outside of the legal process. And it just goes to show how much centralization exists in the world and how much our money, our livelihood is wrapped up in that centralization. I tweeted the other day, or maybe it was in like one of the Bitcoin chats that we're in. And it's like, your need to play by the rules is completely dependent on whether or not you can leave with your money. And if you've got all your money wrapped up in real estate, if you've got all your money wrapped up in some kind of like 401k or some kind of retirement account or some education account or even some bank account, some stock account, some Robinhood account, if all your money's there, you're hooped. You cannot leave. All of your value, everything you've ever worked for is locked to the border, to the jurisdiction, to the four walls of that border. But if you've got 12 words in your head, you can go anywhere in the world and access your generational wealth. All of a sudden, the world's a little bit bigger. The world gets a little bit more free. You get a little bit more, like, less anxiety thinking about, watching the stage. Do I need to take 100 vaccines this year to go watch my kid play hockey? Do I have to wear, 9 masks and eyeglasses so I don't infect someone's like aunt sitting 9 million miles away? Like, a bunch of these mental gymnastics games just don't work when you can kind of like zoom out and you're not working from a place of fear.
Yeah, I always think that I really love what you said there, because it really strikes a chord with just human history and migration from one country to another. Once you get into Bitcoin and you start learning about financial history of the world and empire building and empire destruction, it's impossible not to come to World War I and World War II with the Treaty of Versailles and the reparations that were asked for Germany to pay afterwards, and how France, England, and the United States was just kind of like, hey, I just buddy, whatever you guys say, I'll go along with it. And hey, you need some more weapons? Yeah, okay, well, we'll be the enforcer. But you, France, you, England, you really get the reprimandations from Germany, which created a lot of resentment. And of course, that resentment ended up being misplaced on the wrong population of people, which was the Jewish community. And I always think about, if the Jewish community had, or just any community that's ever been subjugated or, pushed down within a society, had an opportunity to have freedom money, which is what Bitcoin is, the ability to hold your wealth in your head. You hear all these stories about how a lot of people never made it out of Germany, or never made it out of Hungary, or never made it out of these countries because their wealth was so wrapped up into the infrastructure of the country themselves. They literally couldn't get out with anything in time. So either they got out with nothing, which for a lot of people was not an option because, we as humans have this thing called vanity, and that vanity will make us make bad decisions, even though if our life is on the line, just so that we have the moral high ground, which ultimately means you're dead anyway. So I don't know what really that helps. But if they had, you hear these stories about how they would stitch gold into the fabric of their children's clothing, or, pull their own teeth and hide their own gold teeth just so that they could leave the country and have some sort of bartering system to be able to bribe guards at different checkpoints, or have something when they get to where they're going so they can buy some food, buy some clothes, buy some shelter. And a lot of them didn't have any of that. And so those are the only ones that made it out. Everybody else didn't make it out. And we all know what ended up happening to them. So I always think of, like, as we see these countries like, China working more on their social networking, social influencing programs, their Big Brother type of systems, which is something back in the early 2000s. There used to be a TV show called Big Brother. I mean, they were literally telling us right then and there what they were going to do. They were pre-programming us. They were getting us used to the idea of always being watched, always being looked at, always being, told what to do, how to do it. And then, Monday morning quarterbacking, the decisions that person made in that real live moment. And everybody just, like, the whole world tuned into it, and we all got used to it. Now reality TV shows are all the rage. And if it's one of the cheapest films or productions that you can do with the highest viewership, which means people have now been trained into this system of oversight. We have Alexa in our house. We have Google in our house. My phone is always listening to me, no matter how much I turn off those apps. Every upgrade, they're always turned back on.
100%.
And so we live in this world where we no longer have the freedom anymore, not even in our own homes. And so the one place that we still can have freedom is the money. And the money is the power, and the power is the options and choices. I always tell Frieda, I've been telling my kids this forever too. I said, I asked the question, what's money? And they say, oh, well, it's something you can buy with. I said, no. It's options. All money is options. Mo money, mo options. No money, no options. That's it. And so when you have something like Bitcoin, this freedom technology that really allows you to move jurisdiction to jurisdiction, city to city, state to state, country to country, it really does. It opens up your mind and your possibilities to creating a world for yourself and your family and your great-granddaughter, wherever that time, place might be. And I know I'm going to get off my soapbox here, but you got me all
man,
riled up.
100%. This is absolutely it.
Now to get to another question here for you. We've talked about kind of what got you into Bitcoin. We've talked about the business that you've built. I'd like to ask a question about the mistakes that you've made along the way and the lessons that you've learned from those mistakes, and how it's helped you make yourself and your business stronger to be able to compete in this ever, competitive market that's being built up around us.
Yeah, man, I've made all the mistakes. Every single one of them. We don't have enough time to even talk about half of them, probably. But I think what they fundamentally all boil down to is not finding the right balance between my own internal voice, my own conscience, my own thoughts, and the counsel of others. And I think that the counsel of others is very important. But what I found is that nobody understood, or at least if I didn't do a good job explaining what my end goal was, what my mission was, then the counsel I got was not usually, related. And it usually didn't give me Either if I took that action, then it didn't work, or I took that action blindly without putting it against my own mission, and I ended up steering off track. And so I would say, like, I think back to the way that we scaled up the company. As part of going public, we raised a little bit of capital. We were hiring up, and I kind of lost control of how we hired. And it was hire fast, hire quick. Basically, when we went public, at the time, it was like, hey, you know, I wanted to raise a bunch of money, and the guys were like, hey, let's just raise a little bit of money, double the business, and then, like, we'll raise all the money in the world. It'll be lights out. And so we raised a little bit of money. We tripled the business, and then we were in 2022 bear market. Nobody loved Bitcoin. Blah blah blah. I'd seen that happen before. I knew that would happen again, and I didn't. It was like I turned a blind eye to it. I was so pumped to just get into building, so pumped to just take the money, do as much as we could with it, on kind of the promise that we would be able to do more in the future. And as a result, we had to scale down. We scaled up and then scaled down in, like, the span of 3 years. It was brutal. It was painful. It was tough for people's lives. It was emotional for the people who stayed. It was really, really tough on the team. And that was, like, completely my bad. That was absolutely from just not zooming out, not taking the full picture with all the knowledge that I had at the time, to actually act on it. But as a result, we were at another tipping point in 2023, and the board at the time kind of said, like, hey, this online business is too expensive. It's we're not getting traction with it. We need to shut her down and just focus on Bitcoin ATMs. And I was like, absolutely not. I know more. I know, I've been here before. I know what happens when I don't listen to my gut and to myself. And lucky for me, I had the power to shift the board, and so I did. And what do you know? The Bitcoin portal. I probably between the portal and our third business unit called Bitcoin Well Infinite, which is like our OTC desk, high net worth individuals, more like private banking. They are, I think, close to 1.5 times what the Bitcoin ATMs bring in today. So about 2 years later, and we're making more money on that than we are on Bitcoin ATMs. Partially because Bitcoin ATMs have come down, and because this scalable growth has been happening. And so when I look at that, I kind of wonder to myself, like, oh, would we have had the same success that we're having now if I hadn't gone through the pain and the kind of awakening that I went through by not listening to my gut, which kind of reinforced, like, hey, you gotta, like, I'm in the chair for a reason, and I gotta listen to myself, and really the convictions that I have need to be pursued harder. And so people often, like, there's like memes like, what radicalized you? It was like, not listening to myself, having been right but not taking the action to benefit from being right is the worst thing. It's, like, so bad. And definitely encourage everyone, if you feel strongly and passionately about something, pursue it, and don't let others get in the way. I think back to when I started the business, 0 people told me it was a good idea to do Bitcoin ATMs. Like, nobody thought that was a good move. But I didn't care, and I kept pushing through. And somewhere along the line, I think it was a combination of, like, imposter syndrome, combination of having, like, really smart people to talk to and having access to these people, and kind of losing confidence in myself. And I think that was probably, like, the greatest mistake that I could have made, was not listening to the mistakes of the past, or sorry, not listening to what was getting me successful in the past, and then making those mistakes. And then I'm very happy that I corrected course to listen to those mistakes in the past, and be able to, obviously be moving forward today.
Now, I know Frieda's got a question here for you, but I just want to jump in with one follow-up before that. And I apologize, Frieda. One of the things I like to do on this podcast is kind of bring it into the mindset of the entrepreneur, to help I know a lot of Bitcoiners that are watching or listening to this podcast are trying to get into the Bitcoin space, trying to start their own companies, trying to navigate this ever-changing wild, wild west environment that we live in the Bitcoin community. And so having company leaders like yourself on the podcast and kind of give a little bit of personal insight to some of the struggles and successes that you've accomplished over just a few year period of time. I mean, 1 month in Bitcoin literally feels like a year in fiat.
Yes.
It's crazy
It's like
when I
dog
think
years.
about, well, we just did that last month. That seemed like it was forever ago. And so, what would be a piece of advice that you would give somebody who's looking to start a business in the Bitcoin space that maybe is not something that has a lot of competition in right now, but something that is obviously seen in high demand in the Bitcoin community? What would be kind of your advice to them on getting that business started and pushing through the tough times?
I think it'd be twofold. The first one would be to really nail down the mission. When in 2020, part of our rebrand, transitioning from Bitcoin Solutions to Bitcoin Well, our mission from accessibility to independence, that was pivotal, and really it gave us a filter for how to build things. When no matter who you are, you're gonna have forks in the road, and you're gonna have to make a decision. And having the filters behind the mission make it really easy to make those choices. You can act faster, you can act better, and you can solidify your brand and your promise to your customers through having that really well-defined mission. That probably goes outside even just Bitcoin. That's just like for any entrepreneur in any business. But Bitcoin specifically, do not plan in 12-month cycles. Plan in 4-year cycles. The boom bust of Bitcoin, and it looks like we could be kind of exiting the like crazy boom, crazy bust cycles that we've experienced for the last 10 years or so.
We've heard that before too.
Exactly. Like this time it's different, right? Like, yeah. and so like in my mind, if you plan in 1-year cycles, and I used to plan in 1-year cycles, we had a hotshot CFO come in, and she was like, "Yeah, we got this. Here's our forecast. Here's our budget. Like, we're good to go 12 months." And I was like, she's like asking me about the numbers. I'm like giving her what I thought. Like, this makes sense to me. Historical growth, blah 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 blah, and it's like out the window. Bitcoin price drops by 50%. Like, what does sailors say? All your models are destroyed. Yeah, no kidding. All your models are destroyed. And I think that having the foresight to like lower your time preference, plan in 4-year cycles. If you're going out for funding's got to last 4 years, or at least have a strategy to reduce your team, reduce your costs, build in such a way that when the price falls, when the sentiment disappears, and even if it doesn't disappear, when it shifts, right? The fiat markets are so fickle. We go from like stonks to like meme coins to AI back to like Bitcoin treasury funds. Like, we are bouncing all over the place. And VCs are like, cocaine addicted toddlers. They just are insane, and they go to wherever the money's going to go. And they just, like, and we can see it. Like, we're publicly traded. We're always kind of like, looking for deals and raising capital when it's accretive and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, Bitcoin's 90K and flat. No one's picking up the phone. Bitcoin's 100K and going up. It's like, hey, how much money you guys need? When can we? And it's like, okay, let's start writing the deal. 2 weeks later, Bitcoin's down. Yeah, we're going to wait. We got some like AI project. It's like, good grief, you guys. You're working in days. Like, you got daily cycles at this point. It is impossible to plan in this environment. And again, it's like a symptom of the money printing. But so I would say plan long, lower your time preference, and dial in the mission. If there's a Bitcoin entrepreneur listening, and I hope there are 10 of you listening, gonna enter the space in some way. I'm seeing some awesome, we just partnered with this group called Jiffy, and they're making this like augmented reality, kind of like gamified, catch a beast, win stats, do some Bitcoin trivia. Their mission is, he's like dialed in. It's like, we want to onboard Gen Z to Bitcoin. I'm like, yes, let's go. So he's like gamifying it. It's cute. It's trendy. It's like, it's not for me. It's not for my dad. But that's his filter, right? It's like, it's not there. And so I'm excited to see where they go. And I'm just so amped up on people entering the space and innovating in the space. This is how Bitcoin's got everything stacked up against it. It's decentralized, it's difficult, it's regulated. But I think that the real ones are going to build and help my great-great-granddaughter live in sovereignty in like 90 years. So that's good.
I think, coming back to sovereignty, I think, Chris touched on the big brother and all of that. And especially our children are really, affected by that. If you send your children to public school, you get a dose of public school. And then, it is really up to us as parents to educate what are our values to our kids.
Yeah.
And the phenomena that I've been seeing just generally around is that people really hand off their family education, so to speak, to schools, to third parties, to the babysitter, and that not a lot of that funneled. So what's like some of the things that you do for your kids in order to actually teach them the points of, hey, this is where we differ? And then also add-on question to that is, you kind of described like the fiat world and the craziness of that, how everybody's like running around like a rat after the cheese.
Totally.
And, the piece that we have in the Bitcoin space, when I first discovered Bitcoin, I came from a product background, so I had some understanding of how systems work and things like that. And I came in and I was very skeptical of like, oh, this is probably going to be hackable and all the regular questions. But what I then uncovered is that behind this thing we call Bitcoin is the Bitcoin community. And they hold a lot of the values that I was holding before I discovered Bitcoin. And that's what really got me into it. And I feel at this point, I'm on the other side. I can breathe. Like I get it. However, there's people that, are my friends that might not be there yet. And how does one take the step? And, so I see them almost like as, they're in the child stage and need to be brought into Bitcoin. So it kind of maybe relates.
Yeah, no, I relate with all that stuff. And I echo your sentiments around the kids. Like we've got 4 kids. They're all pretty small, ages 8, 7, 5, and 3. And so we have 2 of them in public school. The other one's in kindergarten, so that's just like pretty chill. But 3 or 4 years ago, I got some incredible advice from a lady who I respect so much, and she said, up to grade 4, it's like probably fine. Like, there's some weirdness today that didn't exist when she was kind of going through it that I'm a little bit uncomfortable with. But we found like a great semi-private Christian school. That's where our kids go. Lots of the biblical Christian values are like, there's a massive Venn diagram of Christian values and Bitcoiner values. I actually have a presentation called Jesus is a Bitcoiner. And it talks about this in like great detail about how like Jesus was basically talking to Bitcoiners when he was talking about like how to live, and they are just hyper aligned. And so we follow Jesus in our house, and our kids are super on board with that. And so that's been super helpful for us, is just not so much teaching from a like financial like point of view, but more so teaching, because like I think we all understand that fiat is evil and fiat is bad. But it's like, well, what's making the fiat? And like bringing that back to the spiritual realm is very easy for me, and I think accurate. And so having those kind of biblical principles in our house has been like an absolute game changer. Even leaning more into those over the last couple of years has been incredibly helpful for us. And so when something comes home, and we're lucky, we haven't had, like I had a little bit of climate stuff come home one time, which I was like quick to be like, okay, let's just talk about this for 8 seconds and like really think about what, like, hey, do we think that Canada's plastic straws are bad when like this is India, this is China, this is Guatemala, this is like, we think the straws are doing it here, pal? Like, really? And he's like, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, nope, you got it. Like, correct. It doesn't make any sense. And so like, we just look at things in such a way where it's like, okay, this is the hypothesis. Let's evaluate. Let's look at what, let's take a first principle approach to how this is, and then think about downstream effects from that. In Canada here, we have no plastic bags because some genius thought that it was going to help. And so what happened? Well, now you can pay for a paper bag, or you can pay more money for a fabric bag. But there's more plastic in the fabric bag than there was in the plastic bag. And so it's like, hey, does this make sense to you, Mr. 8-year-old? No, that seems like more plastic. Yes, it does. And also, guess what's happening? People are paying more money, so they have less money to be able to do fun things. Do you think that's good? No, I don't. Do you think it's good for the climate? No, I don't. It's like, okay, So we're thinking about this stuff. Just because some teacher told you something from some books they're paid to read out of doesn't necessarily mean that it's correct. And I hope and I pray and I work so hard to have all of my kids question everything, including me. And that's like low time preference parenting. That's the hardest form, in my opinion, because it's like, it's very annoying to have to answer a million questions all the time about why and certain decisions we make. But I do think it's one of the most important things we can do. And to your point, people farm that out to teachers and farm that out to, other people in authority. But my take on that is that if you do not indoctrinate your kids, the state will do it for you. And my goodness, I will be damned if the state has any opportunity to indoctrinate my kids. And I think that more parents should be should feel passionately about that. And I think that the state of our education system, especially in Canada, is in complete shambles. And I am very, very, worried about the type of thinking that we are bringing up, because we're leading. We're like heading. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, and we're heading down the path that rhymes very, very, very closely with fallen societies. And so, yeah, in our house, we just focus on first principles. We take our inspiration from the Bible, and we try to have as many open conversations as possible. Like I talk to my kids about everything, and we talk about mature concepts. We do safeguard them a little bit from like some of the hardcore stuff, like lots of sexuality stuff, lots of like the real stuff that's tough to comprehend when you're like 7. We shield them from that. But we're talking about very mature concepts, talking about business. We're talking about, the world and what changes the world and first principles. And I think it's going well. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm super biased, and you really don't know until they're like my age, and then it's too late. So it's got to do the best you can.
Yeah, awesome. I want to bring it back to sports, because this is the Bitcoin Sports Network podcast.
Let's talk about sports. Let's talk about golf. Let's talk about the second annual Bitcoin Golf Championship happening in Vegas, shall we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you been practicing?
No. I played a little bit of golf in Hawaii this winter. My son and I played some golf, and actually my daughter came up for the first time. We were in Phoenix last month, and so we played a little bit of golf there. For like, I don't know, 7 or 8 holes. I got the Voldemorts, which is when just like nothing goes according to plan, and the golf ball was just like spraying every which way, and I was like, good grief, what is going on here? But that seems to be fixed now, so that's good. And then I'm in a little mini tournament with my men's club on the Saturday, and then Sunday I go to Vegas, and then Monday I'm playing in this. So I should be warmed up, should be in good shape, and I'm pumped, man. I think that golf is probably the most Bitcoin of the sports, because it's so low time preference, it's so frustrating, and it's just so like in your head. You have to really be aware of what's going on in your own mind. You have to be like present and focused, and I think it's a beautiful game. It's one that no one's ever mastered. Like, everyone's good at golf, but like, we've all watched Tiger Woods shoot 80, and that's crazy. And so I'm super pumped on the Bitcoin sports or the golf. I don't forget what was it called? The Bitcoin Golf Championship.
Yes.
I'm super pumped on that.
The Bitcoin Golf Championship. It is the best golf tournament I kind of struggle to say that, because the Max and Stacy Invitational is also the best golf tournament in Bitcoin.
Yeah,
and Isa,
so I guess you could say the
regional.
The regional, yeah. The Max and Stacy is the best Bitcoin golf tournament in El Salvador, in Central America, and I'll even put South America in there. And the Bitcoin Golf Championship is the best golf tournament here in the United States. And Amazing. There's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the major reasons for it is because the Bitcoiners that come out and that play in it, like you were saying, golf is it aligns perfectly with Bitcoin because of the proof of work characteristics that golf elevate, or I guess would say hyper focus on. That if you don't have those skills, if you haven't put in that work, it's like if you're a miner and you don't have enough hash power, you're not going to win a block. Totally. It's like if you've never swung a golf club before, but you're a pro baseball player, you're a pro hockey player, you're a pro, Frisbee golf player, whatever. You have the coordination, but the timing is everything. Just like, in Bitcoin, we talk about 4-year cycles, in golf. You don't want to think about 18 holes, because the moment you put a score in your head is the moment You blow up your round and you end
Totally.
up 20 strokes where you thought you were going to be. So like Bitcoin happens in a 4-year incremental blocks. Golf happens in 3-hole stretches. Play every 3 holes like it's the first 3 holes and just try to play to par on those 3 holes.
You are far more advanced than me. I play in shot increments. I'm just looking to get through the next shot. I find if I'm thinking about my putt when I'm on the tee box, I'm not even going to get to putting. It's such a difficult game. I totally subscribe to your mentality. That's awesome.
Yeah, my two comments to people is always, first of all, you have to hate yourself to love golf, because who else would put themselves through that kind of torture and pay for it? Pay a premium to do it. And be careful what you think, because the golf ball can hear you.
That
You may be up there on
100%,
that tee
man.
box and be like, oh, 150-yard shot. This is a no-brainer. It's an 8-iron, easy 8-iron. I hit it all day long, no problem. But ooh, there's a lake right there. Oh, it's over.
You know what? My son, when we were in Phoenix, there's this par 3, and he plays from the forward tees, and it was about 100 yards to carry. It was water the whole way to the green. And I was like, hey, dude, like, do you want to, like, he's 8. I was like, do you want to just, go to the drop zone? Like, so we've been in the path. Like, no, I think I got this. And he like walks up and he pounds it and he made it. He literally, but he made it in the best way possible, where he just hit, like, I guess he didn't quite make it. He hit the last rock of, like the green, and it bounced onto the green. So he was like, it
Oh,
was so
wow.
good. We had some people that were just kind of pulling up, and they watched it and they were like clapping for him. And it was the best. And so it just goes to show that little kid mindset and confidence of being like, what water? No problem. Like, there's the green. That's my target. Let's go. And I think the more that I can like adopt that in my game is when it actually goes well.
Yeah, and I think that's what brings so many people out to the tournament, because, to be honest with you, we do get PGA players that play in the tournament. Not the guys that you see on TV, but the guys with their tour cards who are, they're better than the Korn Ferry Tour and trying to make it on the PGA Tour. So maybe they have 1 or 2 exemptions throughout the year, and then they're trying to find other places to do it. But they're Bitcoiners, and they're like, Bitcoin golf, I love it. And they get out there and we do a 2-person team scramble, which basically means everybody gets a mulligan on almost every single shot, minus the Bitcoin inspired holes that we have out there to kind of handicap the game a little bit. Because the last thing I want to do is deal with people's USGA handicaps, because most people don't have them and most people lie. So, we are a don't trust, verify type of community. So we do 2-person scrambles, groups of 4. So there's 2 teams policing each other throughout the entire round, which honestly keeps the scores very competitive. It's usually not 10 under, 12 under, 15 under. It's like 6 under, 4 under, something like that. And that's with the pros out there playing as well. This year, I'm super excited because we're donating a portion of the proceeds to Bitcoin veterans, or Operation
Nice.
Bitcoin, which is a nonprofit in the Bitcoin community that helps veterans kind of reassimilate into the community and give them kind of a meaning and teach them about Bitcoin and help them grow their prosperity. Because we in the United States know that we do a less than efficient job at managing our veterans once they come back from war, that fight for our freedom and put their life on the line for us. And we need to do better at that. So it's really cool that Gabe and the crew over there at Bitcoin for Veterans started this organization, and we got a chance to meet them. So we're hoping the more the merrier that come out, the more people that come out, the more of a donation that gets made to this awesome charity. But on the second hole is a par 5, fairly straight par 5. It's not a long drive hole on that one. It's just a par 5. But we have a professional long driver who's going to be out there on the tee box from Pin High Golf. And they come out and they accept donations for the charity of choice. And those donations will then go to Bitcoin, Operation Bitcoin. But if you pay them $25 or more, they'll hit your tee shot for you on that hole. So it's a very makeable eagle hole as it is. But then if you could have some guy just stripe it out there, 375 yards in the middle of the fairway for you. If you're coming around the turn, it's a shotgun start, so not everybody starts on 1. If you're coming around the turn and you only got a couple holes left, and you're like, oh, we're like 4 or 5 under, we could, if we get an eagle on this hole, like, we could really compete. We could win one of these awesome one of a kind watches from Coin Vigilante that will be like the Bitcoin trophy of the year. I mean, these things get coveted. They're so beautiful. If you haven't seen any of the watches at Coin Vigilante that they make, go to their website. They're amazing.
Yeah,
And
I
they're
saw
going to
them
have
on your
some.
website. They look amazing. I was actually eyeing that up I think like in the email promo you sent, and I was like, "Whoo, that." I got my eyes on the watch for sure.
Yeah,
Nice.
watches, 56-degree golf wedges, which is what will be the prizes on the closest to the pin. I mean,
Which
these
is
things are.
you guys are sponsoring the 6 hole, and
Yes,
so there will be one of those wedges,
I'm I'm
presented.
pumped.
Yeah, to have a
I
Vegas
low
inspired.
key hope that I get to win the wedge, but I'm not sure if that's bad form or not. So we'll
Yeah,
see. Although lucky for us, my short game is not very good, so it's unlikely.
I want to win it too. Ledin is one of the premier Bitcoin lending facilities in the space, and they're sponsoring holes 7, 8, and 9, which is unofficially called Satoshi Stretch, but
Sweet.
we're calling it the going long with Ledin 3-hole stretch. And on the 8th hole, I had a putter company, a custom manufacturing putter company reach out to us and they're Bitcoiners, and they wanted to design us a putter for it. So
Wow.
it just came in the mail yesterday. It's awesome.
Amazing.
I did a little promo
Beautiful.
video for it. Maybe it'll come out here in the next couple of days. But the prizes we have at these events, it's, Bitcoin is a scarcity type of environment. You, me, all of us in the Bitcoin community, we are scarce, and we know that because the slogan for Bitcoin is "We are so early." And the only way you can be early is if you're only one of the only people standing in line, understanding what's going on, right? So everything that we do is custom, one of a kind, shows off the person's proof of work. If you win one of these prizes, I'm telling you, it'll be something that you cherish for the rest of your life, because you will have known that you will have put in the work, and people who you beat to get this thing will realize, like, he deserved it. He put in the work. He got the shot, and that's what we like to do. We like to celebrate Bitcoin, celebrate sports, celebrate our industry, and meet a lot of people doing it, and create some new relationships.
Adam,
Man,
any last words? Any last words from you? How do people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Monday at the Bitcoin Golf Championship. I'll be there with bells on. Super pumped for that. You can find me on Twitter, Adam O'Brien _ on Twitter, or on Noster. I am so bullish on the Noster platform, and so really excited to see freedom protocols and freedom of communication kind of coming out. We've got a product that's coming out on which has some Noster vibes about it, and I'm super pumped for it. And it's like Noster solved the problem that Bitcoiners experience, and so super excited to be spreading that. But yeah, go to Adam O'Brien _ on X, or of course go to bitcoinwell.com. I love it when people use our platform and then rip it to shreds. Tell me why it sucks. We are builders. We have zero ego. I approach things from a first principle perspective, and typically it's usually a first principle that gets us to the top. And so looking forward to meeting lots of Bitcoiners. I'll be in Vegas. I cannot wait for the conference. It's like one giant Bitcoin party for, I don't know, 5 or 6 days, and I'm just so pumped. So hope to see everyone there. I can't wait to see you guys and give you a big hug in person, and just very excited.
Awesome. I just want to throw in there, so we do have a value for value stage presence. There's bands coming on at the Bitcoin kickoff party, and we are actually live streaming through Tunester.
Let's go. Awesome.
From the Nostr community. The Nostr community will also show up. We will have a table and educate people there about what Nostr is and how they can get online on Nostr. So we're pumped for that. I think a lot of people maybe have a misconception, the kickoff party being sponsored by Bitcoin for Corporations, that it's going to be boring and there's going to be people in suits. That is not the case. Trust us. When Bitcoin Sports Network puts on anything, it's a true Bitcoiner event. And so we really stand behind that.
Oh, I cannot wait. It's going to be a best. There's no better way to just kick off the big week of festivities. So super pumped.
Yeah. And for anybody who's out there who's interested in checking out the event, go to great-great-granddaughter.com, and you can find all of the information on the golf tournament and the Bitcoin for Corporations kickoff party that's taking place on Memorial Day, May 26th. There are still a few tickets available for the golf tournament. I am expecting them to be sold out in the next day or two here from the time this comes out. So if you're lucky enough to still grab one if you're interested. And for the kickoff party, we still have several tickets open for that. So right now we're at about 100, 150 people are going to be there. So it's by no means going to be a small event, but we still have some more space for people. So if you're available and you want to be able to come out, you're in Las Vegas a little bit early, come out to this event, meet CEOs like Adam, meet politicians, meet Bitcoin influencers, meet all sorts of people that for the rest of the week, you're only going to be able to see on stage. This is your event that's for Bitcoiners that can come and mingle and meet all of the people that you've been hearing and learning from in the Bitcoin community for years.
And including Lawrence Laporte, who's going to be doing a book signing for us on the
Sweet.
site, as well as Max and Stacy, who will orange pill our live streaming booth for about an hour and interview folks. So that'll be fun.
Great.
Love
Thanks,
it.
everybody. See you at the event.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.